If I could have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the service here in our chapel for Mr. Ben Bishaf. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you might happen to have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn it off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Barry Schechter from Congregation Kol Emmett in Skokie. Thank you, Rabbi.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai, mi Yaakov Yolecha, mi Yishkon behar kodshecha, Holech tamim, ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo, Lo regal leshono, lo asal re'ehu ra, v'cherepa lo nasa, al kerovo. Nivze beinav nimas, v'et yerei Adonai yechabed, nishpat lara, V'lo yamir, kaspo lo natan b'neshech, v'shochad anaki lo lakach. Oseile, lo yimot li'olam. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Dear friends, we're here for a sad and difficult occasion, to say goodbye, which is one of the most difficult things that we can ever do, but also to pay tribute and to honor the memory, and maybe even to, if possible, to celebrate the life of Ben Bishaf, the son of Benjamin in Hebrew, the son of Sarah and Jacob, who's gone to his eternal rest at the age, if I'm right, of 97. He leaves behind a family and friends who loved him very, very dearly. First I should mention his late wife, Joan, to whom we said goodbye just last year. But we have here the children, Keith and his Connie, and Marcie and her, where's Marcie? Marcie and her Stephen. And I should also mention the late Michael, who passed early, and the grandchildren, Paul and Jennifer and Kyle, and his brothers and sister, Morrie, who was with us, and his Doris, and the late Abe, the late Leo, the late Irv, and his late wife, Esther, and the late Evelyn. Did I remember everyone? Yeah, I got everyone right. Good, thank you. Well, I've spoken to a few of you about Ben. Ben and Joan were married for 63 years. Ben grew up on the west side of Chicago. He went to Marshall High School, later moved to the near north. He worked. Well, I should really mention before the work, he served in the army in World War II. He was a pilot, and then he also had a pilot's license, so he could be a private pilot too. He worked in radio. After a certain incident, he worked in radio for the army, for our army, for this country. And I have to mention this about World War II. You know, people talk about war, which side is right, is there such a thing as a just war? A war that is really a war of good against evil. If ever there was such a war, that was World War II. And he fought in it on, not just really on our side, but on the side of humanity against evil. He really loved planes, but Joan was not as keen on planes as he was. She didn't like to fly. He worked as a car salesman, and he also worked on the markets. He was quite skillful in doing this. I know that Marcie, he bought you a car, right, after you graduated from the University of Illinois. He brought you, I think it was a Chevy Cavalier, wasn't it? Yes? A little red car. I've told you can call out if I make a mistake. I've invited you to heckle me. But they bought you this car, but they wanted to try it out first. So they drove it around the whole country to make sure that it was good for you. I have that correct, right? Yes. Now, Keith, you had cars as well, but you had the less expensive cars, shall we say? Yes. And you would always go and trade them in with your uncles, right? You go. They had this place across the street from what's it called, Riverview. Yes. Marcie, you went to Sunday school. Keith, you went to Hebrew school at Lincolnwood Jewish Congregation, and you actually had a bar mitzvah. I use the word actually because there was some doubt. You were very popular. You don't mind me saying this, do you, Keith? Really, you were very popular in the school. I know you were so popular that the principal used to often call your parents. But you had your bar mitzvah. And that is nothing to be scorned. That's very, very nice. Ben was very, very handy. Really handy. As someone, I am... You see this? You think this is a right and this is a left. They're both left. That's why I have enormous admiration when I hear of someone like Ben. He told me that he redid the basement himself. It was an unfinished basement, and he put the paneling up and did all these things, and it was fine. It was really fine. I think he loved your mother's mandel bread. Is that right? And I know. But I've also told, I didn't get this from you, that Ben, we're coming to Hanukkah now, and Ben made latkes. And they were very, very good. Yeah, I'm waiting for you to nod your head. Yes, they were good. I know they were wonderful. And the family used to come round for Hanukkah. They would come round. They would be at your place, Marcie's, for his latkes. I know that. Speaking of food, as he got older, Marcie, you made banana bread for him, which he really loved. But you have other memories. You told me, for example, that he loved to read the newspapers, right? And they would be out on the kitchen table. He read constantly. He had strong views, which apparently he was not shy about expressing, like his political views. And I understand that, Marcie, when both sides of your family got together, sometimes you had to insist that politics would not be discussed. He liked to watch sports, although he wasn't really an avid fan. But the thing is, he was a kind man, and he was a man who really worked to make sure that the family was cared for, was provided for. When he was in the car business, he could work very, very long hours, extremely long hours, sometimes till 9 p.m. And in the days when you were allowed to sell, because for a period you weren't in Illinois, you couldn't sell cars on Sundays, right? But before that, he could be gone all weekend, just working at his business, working at the business he was involved in. You have some lovely memories of Sunday nights when Peter and Francis would come, right, for dinner, or you would go to them. And you'd have Jewish holidays at Uncle Morrie's house. They would always be there. And, I mentioned the military before, and the interesting thing is that he was quite humble about it. There's some people who brag. He was not the boastful type at all. When he was young, you told me, Keith, he was in high school, he was a photographer as a young man. He took photographs, and he even got awards with it. And these skills, he transmitted them to you, Keith, right? So that you did these things as well. You have memories. You told me about a memory that you went to Brookfield Zoo, and he wanted you to see what everyone wants to see. I'm being facetious. The alligators. So he held you up above so that you could look down on the alligators. How old were you at the time? 4 or 5. Your mother did not approve. She screamed her head off. But you're here to tell the tale, so all is well. You told me other times, he was in the military, so he was used in the military. I guess, you can't always dial 911 in the military. You can't have a doctor come and see you. So you told me that he in the kitchen, was it? He cut his hand, right? Well, he got a needle and thread. He heated the needle and he stitched it up himself. No anesthetic, nothing. This was not making a fuss. I mean, we all know people who say, "Oh, my finger, oi, does this hurt?" and go on and on. But that wasn't his way. He's cut himself, and he's going to deal with it. He's going to deal with it himself. As he got older, we know that he wasn't well. He moved in the end. He moved up north. He moved to Mundelein, right, to be near you. And he had traded before, as I said, on the stock exchange. He'd done very well. And after he moved to Mundelein, he actually did trading just to keep himself busy. Because your memory was growing up with a TV station on with the stock exchange figures there all the time. When I meet with families, when I talk to families, and I ask them about, what their family has done, and I'm really struck by the fact that often it's the simplest stories that affect me the most. If I meet someone and they have a whole story like, their father was like Henry Kissinger, he flew all over the world and changed the world and so on and so forth, that's very impressive, I suppose. But when you have someone who, several of you have told me, and not just members of the family, he was a kind man. He was a nice man. He worked hard for his family. He served his country. This, to me, is in a way the most impressive, because I start thinking, what if everyone were like that? What if everyone were like that? Have a family, look after them. And by the way, because he looks after them, then when he is not so well, they look after him. What if the whole world were like that? Wouldn't the world be a better place? And if you look at the world now, we could do with the world being a better place. And if I say of someone, or if any of us says of someone, if there were more people like him, the world would be a better place. What can be greater praise? What can be greater praise than that? I know they didn't travel that much. They went to certain places. Of course, Joan didn't like to fly. But that really doesn't matter. Because we're here, to, as I said, to celebrate a life and to look at the qualities that make that life. This man who was humble, he didn't complain, he really was a blessing. And you can be grateful and proud that you had him. I wish you could have had him for longer, but he had a good long life. I wish that for all of you here, to have a good long life of decency, of being a good neshama, right? A good soul, a good spirit with a good heart. That's what's important. Don't be taken in by what we see all the time now. This is the most important thing. And so he is, he's at peace now. Although I have to tell you, in Jewish tradition, I don't know if you know this, in Jewish tradition, there is an afterlife. We don't understand it because I don't think we can understand it. I've actually spoken about this in different places. For some reason, I've never been asked to speak about this in Jewish circles. The only places that I've spoken about it, believe it or not, are in Catholic churches where they've invited a rabbi to speak about the Jewish view of the afterlife. Can you imagine? And I always explain to them, you say the Jewish view, you don't understand Jewish people. We don't have one view, we have 20 different views and we all argue with each other, right? Do you agree? I'm waiting for agreement. Okay, good. And the scholars, they all disagree with each other. And Rambam, Maimonides, who was our greatest scholar, he's so Jewish that he doesn't need anyone else. He doesn't need anyone else to argue with him, to contradict him. He contradicts himself. So there is some kind of existence afterwards which we can't understand. But he's there in whatever state that is, and he's already he's watching the heavenly stock exchange, I'm quite sure, right? And if there's anything that needs repairing up there, wherever it is, a basement or something like that, he is the most skilled person available and he's doing it. But seriously, he's at peace now. And as I said before, you can be grateful and proud that you had such a man in your lives. And of him I say, Tahei nishmatot tzurura b'tzor hachayim. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. And to him I say, Binyamin, Lech b'shalom, geh in Frieden, go in peace. Haba lechtigen Gan Eden, may your repose be in paradise, you will never be forgotten. You will always be remembered in love by those who knew you and loved you, and those whom you knew and you loved. Amen. And now, I'm going to chant the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew, and then we'll read it in English. Mizmor David, Adonai, Roi lo echsar, Binote she'abitzeini al minuchot yanaleini, Nafshi shovev, Yanecheni, B'maglei tzedek, Leman shemau, Gam ekielech b'geit salamavet, Lo yirara, Ki ata imadi, Shivtecha umishantecha menachamoni, Tarok lefanai, Sholechan en neget zorerai, Tishane tav Hashem en roshi, Kosi revaya, Ach tov chesed, Yerefuni kol yemei chayai, V'shavti b'veit Adonai, Liorech yamim. As I said, that's the 23rd Psalm. If you open these little booklets on the top left-hand page, please read with me. It begins, "The Lord is my shepherd." Let's read together. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Could I ask you, if you can, to stand, please? If it's difficult for you to stand, stay seated. Please don't worry. But please stand. And could I have those of you with the ribbons, I think it's just 3 of you, am I right, wearing the ribbons? Could you come together, and I'm going to cut the, in fact, why don't you, if you could come over here. We'll do it so we can record it. So I'm going to cut these ribbons, and I'm going to say the bracha with you that we say when we suffer a loss. Oh, would you come a bit closer here? So, you say the bracha with me. The bracha begins the usual way, Baruch Atah, and so on. And at the end, there are 2 different words, so I will say them with you. So, say with me. Baruch Atah Ado Elo Melech Haolam. Now listen. Dayan Ha'emes. And that's what we say when we suffer a loss. If you can go back to your seats now, and please remain standing if you can. Heil male rachamim, shochen b'mromim, hametzei menucha nechona, taka at kanfei hashchina, b'mahalot kedoshim utorim, כזוהר כמסירים את נשמת בנימין בן שרה ויעקב שהלך לעולמו בעבור שנתנון לצדקה ביד אזכרת נשמתו בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו Achein barachamim Yastirehu b'seite kanafo le'olamim V'yitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanuach b'shalom mishkavo V'nomar Amen. Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Ben Bishaf, who has entered eternity and in whose memory we offer charity. May his repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence. And let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family's plots at Shalom Memorial Park Cemetery, 1700 West Rand Road in Arlington Heights. Following the interment, the family will be receiving calls of condolence and sitting Shiva at the Greenhill residence, 21182 West Andover Drive in Mundelein. They'll be sitting today, immediately following the interment until 9 p.m. There is parking available on the streets. For those of you going in procession with the family, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker that should be placed in the front passenger side of your windshield. And also, please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on the tops of the vehicles in the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as close as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you at all times. We want to avoid having any large spaces or large gaps in the procession, particularly as we pass through the intersections. For those watching online, I want to make sure you're aware the family has asked that memorial contributions be made to the Familial Dysautonomia Foundation. For those in attendance here, that information's on the funeral service program. For those watching online, it's on the website that you're currently on. The following individuals have been selected to act as pallbearers. They are family members: Keith, Marcie, Paul, Kyle, Myra, and Brian. If I could ask the pallbearers to please step forward as the deceased and his family and rabbi are escorted from the chapel. Thank you. This concludes the service here in the chapel. The family will not be greeting at the funeral home. If you are going to the cemetery with the family, I would ask you please go to the car as soon as reasonable. Thank you.